I call it balancing, actually. Linda calls it aspiration, but I like balancing because I think it balances you. The only time I slide down into that shadow side is when I don't lose my intuitive efficiency. What interests
What does an extroverted intuition vacation look like?
Floating in the sea.
No.
From experiences. Focused, who's more than
Right, yeah.
But you may have a kind of internal, that's why I was looking at you when I said you may have a kind of internal tension.
Yes, I do.
And I got that either with the...
Charge would be
in the middle of the table, there is
well, I think
want to refer to it.
I think so.
You want to refer to it and include
What's the man?
I use this booklet as part of my toolkit, so if you wanted to scan through those and see that you get some extra tips, that's also another toolkit.
You might come across.
It looks like overproductive. Both of us are choosers. Both of us get the other half of it. If they were going to want to start get out. Think about it. If you start to do it, the story. Both of us as soon as possible. It's a matter of when. It's a mastery version of just doing it.
Right. The problem It's a reflective and
all right, clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you can hear me. All right, so tell me, before we debrief just what I call the task element, which is what you did, just talk about the group process element, how you went about that activity. How was it to do that activity with the tasks? I thought practical, helpful. How was the energy in the room as you were doing it? Really high. It's really fun to watch. But I mean, you know, we like cards. You know, we brought up these cards. So this is where you're going to have to help your neighbor, because we're going to look at 6 possible type confusions, and so you will probably need to make sure you've got the handout with the 2 type preferences in front of you as we go through them. So the first ones we're going to look at, and I wouldn't suggest you reorder your cards, because then we'll be here for the rest of the day doing that. Let's just make sure you've got your handout on the 2 types, so you'll need to have at least one person working with you. So the first one we're going to look at is ISFP, which is a behind-the-scenes improviser, with INFP. As I try to get someone to just work with it. We'll have INFP, but INFP's up there, but make sure you've got ISFP and INFP next to each other. Again, very common confusion, this one. Very common confusion. ISFP and INFP.
Can you say it again?
INFP, which is behind the scenes catalyst. Thank you. And a behind the scenes improviser, ISFP. Thanks, Jen.
Isn't it easier to rip the characters to put them in there? One of us is listening to us over and killing us.
All right, so has everybody got the ISFP and the INFP? All right, now, so why did you think they might be confused between the 2 types? What were your thoughts?
Well, they overlap in terms of being behind the scenes.
So they both have a behind the scenes energy, so they both got that unassuming, gentle energy. Very nice.
Valuing.
They both lead with valuing, and leading with valuing is that really personal decision-making system. It's not, they're not going, this is what I believe in. It's a very personal, private decision-making system, which means that they really do live their life in alignment with their values. Right. Other reasons they might be confused?
Well, the 4th function, the systematizing. Again, so they have that commonality.
They have that commonality, so they share systematizer extroverted thinking as that aspirational, or I call it also balancing function at the end there. Plus, if you want to just look at the preferences, they both share an introverting preference and a perceiving preference. So there's all of those things. So, what are the main differences?
Experience.
Okay, so there's 2 key differences. One is the temperament, which is
Improviser and catalyst.
improvising catalyst, and the other one is the information gathering function, which is experiencing versus brainstorming. Very good. So, and you know, experiencing and brainstorming can look very similar, because experiencing is about utilizing what's current and jumping into options. And actually, brainstorming or extroverted intuiting starts from the present and then jumps into patterns, possibilities, meaning, and reading between the lines. So even those 2 functions can look quite similar. So what questions or what questions might you ask, or what clues might you use to help differentiate?
We had some questions asking them how much time do you want to spend reading theories and models and possibilities?
Thank you. How much time would you like to spend reading theories and models and possibilities without acting on them? So that acting piece, yeah.
And how many real life examples do you think you need, or would you like to have?
How many real life examples would you need? Tell me a little bit more about that.
In the now experiences.
So So those in the now experiences, good.
We thought about like maybe an activity or exercise with the picture. I don't know if with the APTi, you know, the picture of the man with the puppet, and asking them, you know, what did you get out of this picture? And a sensing, more extrovert sensing might give you an order of all the things they saw, where an extroverted intuitive might say, oh, I saw him, it was like God handling, you know, this person's life. And
very good. So could you use some props? So use a picture. Those with extroverted sensing or experiencing won't necessarily write it in sequence. They may pick out lots of details. Lots and lots. Oh, did you see the man standing on the edge holding the flower? Really? There was a man standing on the edge of it? Because I used a different picture. Brainstorming might look more at the patterns and meanings, and often those who have a sensing preference tend to use more concrete language. So what's literal, more tangible or practical, and those with an intuiting preference tend to use, and you hear the qualitative languages tend to use more abstract language with inferences, figurative and more general. And yet we have learned to use both. So I used to be able to sort on that. It's really hard to sort. And I think having a picture would be very useful. What did you think to help sort with the temperament? Any thoughts on differentiating between our improviser and our catalyst? Any thoughts?
Yeah, we're talking about the differences because an improviser for me is just let's make a decision, let's do it.
Yeah, so the improviser is going to be tends to be much more action orientated. Let's make a decision, let's do it.
Yeah. And it's a catalyst. You know, we're going to want to really see is it the right or moving too fast.
My description was the improviser says, so what if something comes in from left field? We'll just figure it out. And the catalyst says, I have to know what's out there in left field before I'm even comfortable doing it.
All right, so the improviser may well be more comfortable jumping in and figuring it out, whereas the catalyst may want to explore more and not be tied down as quickly.
Particularly involves people.
Yeah, I think also we have to be careful though, because the behind-the-scenes energy really is focused on the quality result. And sometimes that behind-the-scenes improviser actually will spend a long time thinking about things. Anything else around that?
Would you say that again?
The behind-the-scenes energy, the drive is to achieve a quality result, as they define quality result. And so all the improvisers, they spend more time to get to that. And they are similar, improvisers and catalysts, because they both have that sense of fun. So that can be a hard one to separate out. But there's often a pragmatism with our improvisers. We'll do what it takes. Versus our catalysts tend to be a bit more collaborative or more interdependent. So we can look at some clues for that too. Present versus future, time orientation. Hands-on versus models you talked about. So I just wanted to check, I'm just gently going to put you on the spot, or did you get any insight from looking at that? Because George's been trying to, or still digesting, I'll come back to it. It's good information, good information. So round of applause, thank you very much for that. Right, here's the next one. So the next one we're going to look at is this table. You've already got everything on the right page, so don't lose anything. The other 5 tables will need to move. It's ISTP, which is our chart the course improviser, with our INTP, which is our behind the scenes theory. So let's make sure we've got our ISTP and our INTP.
It's the end. It's any. Yeah, it's because it's any. Just kind of get the pattern. I haven't really seen everybody.
Everyone got it?
It's like you just get the pattern. You don't even need to.
Everyone got it? All good? Check the level. What did you think?
Okay. Well, we've got the same dominant.
Thank you. So the same dominant function. So introverted thinking or analyzing is the dominant. So that real ability to refine thought, to go for the root cause, to really reframe, recategorize, and resort, which gives a great love of figures and mathematical.
And critique.
And critique. Yes, that lovely ability to ask critical questions. Yes.
And then not such good feelings.
Both have extroverted feeling down there is that aspirational or balancing function, yes? Good, so may not be as tuned into how the group is feeling when they're doing their analysis, yeah?
Well, and I have INTP son, and at this point, he's so not there. Harmonizing, she's clear too.
Yeah, the point is just not in the harmonizing, yes? Why else might they be confused? Because I find this one is, particularly if you're in business, there's an awful lot of software engineers who are actually chart the course improvisers, not behind the scenes theorists, and yet they're often assessed as behind the scenes theorists. So, what else? If you just look at the letters, what else do they share? Introversion and perception. So they both have a, they lead with a decision-making function actually, but they both have a perceiving preference. So these are the judging function, but have a perceiving preference, which sounds really complicated, but it makes sense. All right, so what are the main differences? And there's lots of differences, right? What are the differences?
Well, I thought one of the main differences was really that sensation, the extroverted sensation, energy, which is obviously.
So difference is the extroverted sensing or the experiencing versus the extroverted intuiting, which is brainstorming. And yet because they are the auxiliary process for both, they're slightly softer. So they're sort of there to support the analyzing. And therefore, it's not as obvious that they're a dominant function of the differences. Plus, you know, a lot of the text around the sensing preference describes introverted sensing, not extroverted sensing. The introverted sensing is the one that likes the practical and the sequential and the details, and the extroverted sensing is much more about what's happening right now, what can I touch and experience in the external world. It can often look quite intuitive. So what questions might you ask to help differentiate between experiencing and brainstorming?
So do you like to, in your learning, do you like to do something, or do you like to think about something?
Yeah, so again, I paraphrase it, if you're okay with me paraphrasing it. To what extent are you able, again, to stay with the theory and the idea? To what extent do you like to put that theory into practice? Yeah, to what extent, and the hands-on word still seems to work, I think, for improvisers, yeah? Good. What else?
So wouldn't they all want to say that they like to put their theory into practice? I mean,
No.
isn't that a natural tendency?
My husband's an INTP.
I'm gonna ask.
My husband's an INTP, and he makes things, and he loves to make things, but he has no necessarily desire to see it have any practical application.
Okay, so I like to make them, doesn't need it. Who cares? Yes. I sometimes ask, one of the other questions I sometimes ask, I just ask, what's going on in your head? And for those with preferences for INTP, it's very scary. Because honestly, I had one person and I was like, that leads to this, and then that leads to this, and then this leads to this, and then this leads to this, and this. Wow, it's really intense. It goes all over the place. I mean, it really does. So sometimes that can help differentiate between the experiencing and the brainstorming. What about the difference between theorist and improviser? Thoughts there? You have your theorist is INTP and your improviser is INTP.
I thought that they wanted to, the improviser wants to experience the day more, and that
theorist wants to, you know, be competent in a day?
Yes, I think the driving forces are really important. Were any of you at Mary's session yesterday on the survival games? Yeah, I think the core needs are quite different. So now, one of the challenges is actually for improvisers, really tactical competence is really important to them. I'm not sure if mastery has the same hook for them though. So to what extent is mastery important to you? You might find it. What types of events have you found stressful? That's always a good one for almost any type actually. And they're both pretty pragmatic. Both theorists and improvisers do what it takes to get the job done. So there's a sort of an internal pragmatism.
Are some of these clarifying questions in your book?
They are. Yes. Yes.
Is it split the difference?
Yeah, so this is, let's split the difference. I was asked, you know, why are all the possible type combinations not there? And the reason is this came from a discussion that Kilka and I were having in Australia in about 2001. And I said, you know, temperament really helps to clarify type differences. And so he said, well, will you write an article for me on it? And so that ended up by being 16 articles, which then became the book. So a lot of the questions and examples are in the book. They are.
You talked about computer and technology with this type. And let me see if I'm accurate on this. I would think the ISTP, the advisor, is more programmers, they're detailed, and the INTP are more networking. They're more big picture, networking everything together.
It could be. The question always is, so you know, is it the programmer for ISTP and is it the bigger picture networking? One of the key questions always is, no matter what role you're in, what is it about that role that's motivating to you? Why are you doing that role? Because that'll help get below. So if you might hear something about mastery for our theorists, even though they're doing programming and vice versa.
I can expand on it a little bit if you want.
Please.
I've worked with a lot of IT folks, and this exact thing comes up. I would say between ISTP and INTP, they can both be programmers, but it's how they approach programming. If you ask them how they approach programming, ISTPs are all about the pragmatics. They'll rattle off a ton of tools they use. They don't care how those tools are designed. They just want to put them together and make things work. INTPs will be more concerned with design. They're going to want to think through the entire architecture. So here you get a more architecture-oriented thing from them. That's nice.
That's a great example. Okay, I know that's your specialty, and that's what you're doing. Very nice.
Yes.
Last point, and then we'll move on, because I know we're...
Well, and I would echo that, because I've been in IT for 30 years, too. Ask them what they read in their spare time. So sensing people will read what they need to know to get that job done, where the ends tend to read anything, because they want to have the knowledge.
All right. Very nice. Yeah. Right, did we do a round of applause for you? We did jump in?
Yes.
We did. Okay, let's have the round of applause.
Do you notice any difference in humor between ISTPs?
You know, the humor for ISTPs might be more designed to get a response. So it might be more on the edge. I've sometimes found that STPs, particularly humor, can be a little on the edge because boy, does that make an impact and sound impressive. And oh, well, I just pressed your button and you jumped. Isn't that fun? You know. But I think there's such a cultural element to humor that we have to be quite careful in terms of humor. Yeah. Although, you know, often our theorists, it's the play on words that seems to be more appealing. All right, yes.
Calling and the visioning.
Yeah, you know, and that's a great point. Thank you very much. So for INTP and ISTPs have visioning there in their third function, and so they will talk about, I just get, you know, I'm working on something, I just get it. I just get the solution. Whereas INTPs, they look a lot more grounded in when they bother to go there on the reality. So you might hear that difference. It's a good question. All right, here we are. Let's resort our materials again. Help your neighbor. We're looking at this table at ESFJ, so that's our Get Things Going Stabilizer. And our ENFJ, which is our In Charge Catalyst. ESFJ, get things going, stay like that.
Okay, let's try it again. Yeah. It's either right. Right. So I can see.
ESFJ. ESFJ, I get things going, stabilize it, and ENFJ, ESFJs are the ones who often identify a lot with the catalyst temperament. Right, so, everyone got it? Yep. Yep, everyone got it? Cool. Alright, so what are the similarities between them? Why might they be confused?
They both have the same dominant function.
Thank you, they both have the same dominant function, so they both have extroverted feeling or harmonizing. So tuned into the energy of the group and how people feeling and group consensus and harmony, all that lovely stuff, yes?
Right, right. But they are different in a lot of different ways.
There are a lot of different.
Yeah. The auxiliary for ENFJ is visioning, or introverted intuition, and the auxiliary for ESFJ is recalling. So so a distinguishing question might be, whether something is more practical or from the past, experience from the past versus more of a hunch or blank sheet.
Yeah, I love it for ENFJs. He asks, to what extent do you base what you're doing right now on past experience? And an ENFJ will probably say, what past experience? Did you mean yesterday? I know I just about did that. Yes, so something about the, as we looked at before for ISTJ and INTJ, auxiliary function, visioning versus recalling, so similar things about past, practicalities, etc. Yeah.
Interaction styles are very different. ENFJ is in charge. ESFJ is get things going.
Thank you. So in charge for ENFJ versus get things going for ESFJ, and how might you help try and differentiate the those?
And there is a very interesting thing I'd like to test with you, because I know that one of the styles is yours. In an ENFJ, you've got this in charge aspect. I want to move.
Yeah.
At the same time, you've got the extroverted feeling that says, I want everybody to be involved. And there is a kind of internal tension. You agree with that?
Absolutely. I think within each type there are certain internal tensions. And for ENFJ, let's have harmony in the group, let's have how are people feeling, and then you've also got that lovely catalyst, I'm feeling empathetic, and then the in-charge energy comes in because you've got to get something done right now, and it just plows over the harmonizing, and it plows over all those lovely catalyst values and flattens everybody in their heart.
Where the ESFJ,
whereas the ESFJ, very nice.
It's a get things going, so I don't expect to have the same tension, because you've got more synergy in between the dominant and the interaction side. So probably an ESFJ has less this kind of internal tension. It's probably easier to live that side of the ESFJ than the ENFJ.
Thank you. Yeah, so the get things going energy, which is all about let's get people engaged, let's get people involved, let's be included, and then you've got the harmonizing, which is all about the group. They get a double dose almost of get things going, so there isn't the same degree of tension there.
And they don't have this desire to take things over.
They don't.
They don't plow people down.
They don't plow people down because their whole drive is to engage others to get an embraced result. Whereas the drive for charge is to accomplish something to get an attainable result.
Where does that come from? In charge energy?
Oh, I wish I knew. It is when there's a drive, when something needs to happen. And so there's an instinctive, when something needs to happen. So I can be quite easygoing, but when something needs to happen, I mean, don't be with me setting up a workshop.
Look at Derek.
Duck and cover.
Time and task pressure that just pushes through. So I'm going to say something.
I was going to say that
introverted, you know, the ENFJ is, their perceiving function is that introverted, you know, introverted intuition, which is the closest to the unconscious. So there's a certain truth there that is undeniable to us. And we just want to get out there and be one big happy family our way.
And I also wonder if it's that time dimension, because my auxiliary is future oriented, and I'm focused on whatever has got to get done is out there. It's not here. What's here is less important. I've got to get
there. There is that drive and that vision to accomplish the vision.
Packing is difficult for ENFJs. Packing is difficult. You don't want anybody around you when you're packing. I don't know if other ENFJs do that.
I think I've actually got it into a routine now.
But it's a stressful experience.
It is.
It's a lot of fun.
What's the discipline for why is it stressful as an object?
What might be that's a great question. What might be, and there's another internal conflict, what might be it's a slightly different subject, but I'll answer anyway. What might be the internal conflict for ESFJ? And I hear this a lot when I'm training facilitators. So here they are, they're structured, they like it structured, they like it organized, they like a sense of structure and organization, and then the group wants to go, the group, oh, you want to go that way, great, let's go that way, because all the group's together and we've got this embrace result, oh, I was supposed to be going that way. So there's a tension between the structure and the flexibility that goes with the get things going.
If the group wants to go elsewhere, but if the group's
yeah, so the group follows you, it's fine. Yeah, I've talked to many get things going stabilizers, they're beautiful facilitators, because they are able to both have structure and go with the flow. It's just it can create some internal tension. I'm sensitive to time. Is it all right if we move on? Is this how insightful is this for you?
Very.
Right, round of applause for this group. And we have an hour and a half for lunch, so are you okay if we just sort of do 5 minutes per table so that we complete them? Is that okay or not?
Yeah.
Hour and a half for lunch? I know we're all hungry. Anyway, all right, so I gave this table the real challenge. It's one that I find comes up a lot, so help you know again, it's ESTP, which is your in-charge improviser, ESTP.
Page 9.
Page 9, thank you very much. With our ENTJ, which is our in-charge theorist. Page 5. So, ENTJ, so in-charge theorist. With ESTP. So actually you've only got 2 of the preferences in common. All right, so what did you think? I mean, what are the similarities between these two? In-charge theorist, ENTJ, and ESTP, in-charge improviser. All right, so are you there? All right, so why might they be confused with each other?
They're both in charge.
They're both in charge. And you think, well, there's other 2 types who are in charge, but this is a really driving in-charge energy. Yes? Are you with us? Yes. All right, good. What else?
In charge.
Both in charge.
That's the only visible commonality, but it's huge.
It's the only visible commonality, but it's huge, because they're 2 different temperaments. So we've got the improviser and the theorist. But what might be the commonalities between the improviser and the theorist?
Yeah, and when they have that kind of in charge energy, they could both appear either as a theorist or an improviser, really.
They could. That's a great insight that they can. I've had someone say to me, oh, well, this person's definitely an improviser because of the in-charge energy, but actually they're an in-charge theorist. So a lot of times we're assessing the energy, not the driving force or the core need, which is the temperament. Good. What else did you think?
When we're looking at both of them, it was pretty much just the timing of when they prefer to really take control, or really when they really want to, because they're both very compatible. The in-charge improviser is all about, let's do it right now without planning it out, and we'll get there later.
Yeah.
The in-charge theorist is about, let's do it right now, let's plan it out now, and then we can go into the details later on.
Let's do it out
but
now.
we're all going to do it right now.
Yeah,
which
so,
is what I prefer to do.
so the in-charge improviser, hands-on, let's get it done right now, may appear more tactical versus the in-charge theorist who is driving forward to achieve their vision. So they've actually done their visioning, but we don't see their visioning, we just see their,
We don't see it, we just see the
their
implementation.
systematizing. Exactly.
And the conversation about envisioning could become problematic because
Yes.
the improviser might have less patience for talking about the future and the complexities of redesigning the.
Although when you look at ESTPs, visioning is there for them as that aspirational function. So actually ENTJs and ESTPs do share experiencing and visioning. They're just at slightly different places in their hierarchy. So often then that requires a discussion about what's learned. I love the behavior versus the preference that Hyle showed yesterday, and or the day before yesterday, and how systematic are you in your planning? Although, Shani, I'm curious, because you have preferences for ESTP. Well, how would you describe the main difference between you and an in-charge rational or an in-charge theorist?
Well, I don't know enough about this. I just know how I am.
So, go ahead.
So what's the question?
So, how do you naturally tend to act then? If you're confronting a problem or...
If I'm confronting a problem, it's just figuring out how to get it solved now.
Yeah, that's it. Just start it.
Yeah, so much more sort of, let's get started, tactical problem solving versus maybe the more strategic, let's take a step back and try and work out.
We also discussed that it would be even more confusing depending on how much experience a person had. Because if you had a lot of experience, but you were the ES, it might look like the other.
Yes, so if you've got a lot of experience or mature, you might be actually picking up some of the other...
But that's what you'd be drawing from, is your experience.
Yes, you'd be drawing from the experience.
Yeah, and then again, going with experience or with the other parts of personality, perfectionism is a really interesting part of our personality that needs to really be taken into account. So your ES person looks more like improviser looks more like a theorist, much more like a theorist, and your theorist then, because of the experience, looks like an improviser. All right, because they've got it all figured out already. We're just going.
Yeah, it's very interesting because they both, for the theorist and improviser, they share that degree of tactical competence. The theorist has that perfectionistic drive, and yet the improviser has that need to be impressive. So that perfectionistic and need to be impressive can look quite similar.
I have to admit, when you walked over here and gave us that as a task, I just looked at you.
You did. And
I did.
Why exactly?
I was like, all right.
Yeah.
But now, after we've processed and everything, I was like, okay, I see how. Because if you're just looking at the functions,
yes,
then you're like, these people, why would you confuse them?
Thank you.
Right. But there's no reason in my mind to confuse these because I was going from the functions.
Yes.
So when you came, I actually gave you the wrong one because you were saying, okay, ESTP, and I gave you the wrong, so you're like, no. Like, okay.
Yeah, and I think because the interaction style is so physical and visible, and it can look also in charge like a thinking preference when it's not, that it is quite, we have to sort of filter out then what's the thought process and what is the driving force or the core need going on there. I need to move on.
No.
Right, thank you. Round of applause for this paper. All right, so let's just do then, the last one here is another of my favorites. ESFP, which is our get things going improviser, and ENFP, which is our get things going catalyst. So you're already on the right page. So everybody else, E, S, F, P, which is our get things going, improviser, or get things going, catalyst.
What do we use?
3 and 9.
ES.
3 and 9.
ES, 3 and 9. ESFP and ENFP. 3 and 9. All right, everyone on the right page? Is this the last one? This Aztec was very kindly agreed to. I'm taking one for the team here. Yes. All right, so this table, so what are some similarities? What are the differences? Why the confusion?
So the similarities are the interaction styles, getting things done. So it's inspiring, it's evolving. Let's get things going.
Yeah, so that get things going energy can look very, very catalyst. Yes.
So that's similar, and then their auxiliary and tertiary functions of valuing. So the introverted feeling, and then the tertiary, the extroverted thinking, systemizing, like the same.
Yeah, so
they share that.
Yeah, so the decision-making processes are the same. They're valuing first, and they're systematizing or extroverted thinking third. So their decision-making or judgment is going to be similar. Good. What else?
Those are the similarities. The places where they're similar.
Great.
So but then they also have some strong differences. So their temperament.
Yes.
So the ENFP is the catalyst.
Yeah.
And then the ESFP is the improviser.
Yeah.
So their temperament's different, and the auxiliary, their dominant is also different. So the brainstorming, again, versus experiencing, and then their inferior is also different. Recalling versus visioning.
Visioning. Yeah, so temperament's different, dominant function is different, and balancing or aspirational function is different. Yeah. And I think we talked a bit. Anything else you'd like to add in terms of how we might separate those out?
For me, the question, I know others have that experience, but the question for me, and particularly the temperament, the catalyst, and the improviser, the idea I had was about cooking a recipe for someone, and whereas the catalyst is probably going to take a recipe and try to, they're going to take that recipe as the basic and improve upon it. So they're going to take a chicken and they're going to have a recipe and they're going to develop it. The improviser is going to just be creative. And they're going to serve you rattlesnake because it tastes like chicken.
So they might be more flexible,
more
creative. I'll just take the ingredients and make it work as an improviser, trusting the tactical competence versus maybe a bit more structure. But any other thoughts?
They've all got
And I'm sensitive to time. I think we talked a bit about the experiencing the concrete reality versus patterns and possibilities, and the drive for purpose and meaning you might solve for our catalyst versus the drive to be impressive and have the freedom to make their own choices. And yet they can look quite similar in their fun, freedom, spontaneity, flexibility, playfulness. They're very, very similar. So what's your learning point from doing this? And I'd like to just finish with a tool that gives you your temperament, your interaction style, and the hierarchy of your cognitive processes. So what's your learning point from this session on verifying best fit time, tips and techniques?
I just think it's fabulous bringing in the temperament, interaction styles, and looking at the functions, because it really gives you a holistic complete look. And I just think that that's really valuable.
Yeah, looking at the temperament, the interaction styles, and the cognitive process gives you that more holistic approach to the whole methodology. Yeah. Any other key learnings? Yes.
Yeah, I think the other thing about bringing in more of it for, the experience of the participants is, like you said, sometimes things just resonate a little better. So again, if people are kind of shaky on tight, they may really get clear in temperament, and it makes them, it's like, oh, I got one, I got a home, I have a thing that I can really feel good and keep in mind. So that's what I really appreciate.
Super learning point. Sometimes, one of the lenses works really well. Some people, they just get, yeah, that temperament lens, yeah, I got it. Then they look at interaction style like, huh,
Yeah.
And then the cognitive processor help. Sometimes they get the interaction style energy first, and then we build back in to the temperament and the cognitive processes. So it enables us to use multiple tools. Yes.
In your experience, how long does it take for all three lenses to sort of integrate?
So in my experience, how long does it take for all three lenses to integrate? You know, it can be all over the map. I mean, some people just like clunk, 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 yeah, got it, right next. And some really, really struggle. I had one person, I think it was on her third 2-day workshop, actually it's Jane. She finally said, you know what, she was sorting between the behind-the-scenes artisan, improviser, and the behind-the-scenes catalyst. She went, no, no, no. I do lots of that experiencing because I'm married to an improviser.
There you go.
And my mother's an improviser. Actually, my driving force is catalyst. And she's a behind-the-scenes catalyst. So, but it took her a while. The cards help though, because it brings it to life. The other two, as I said, I use. Let's split the difference. I sometimes, the description is in there. I let people read that for themselves and discuss. This is the best book on type descriptions, honestly. It's written by Mary in Australia. She interviewed 200 people, documented it all, used their language. So it's in the language of the people who were that type versus someone transcribing it into our own language, which as temperaments, we might change. The intent is right, but the meaning may change. So I know some of you have already done this, but just as a final tool, you want to take one and pass it around. This is the tool I use if you don't have all the cards with you to help identify for the type what's the temperament, interaction style, and hierarchical processes. And I know several of you were here already on Tuesday, so you've seen this sheet, so help your neighbour. All right, so the coloured side, blue, green, yellow, red, needs to be face down. And please fold all 4 corners into the middle. All 4 corners into the middle. Hold on. And then don't jump ahead because there is a step. We make sure everyone's with you. Everyone's got 4 corners into the middle. Yeah. Slow down. I do see those sort of thinking often are very accurate about the way the lines are. Of course they are. All right, then you turn it other way up like this, so the sticky out bits are at the bottom. Okay. And all the bold shapes are uppermost. Yeah. And you fold it all 4 corners into the middle again.
They make these.
And you kick it across the room.
And turn around, and then fold this to the corner, right?
Right, so it should look like this. The outer side should look like this. If it doesn't, you didn't turn it the right way up. So you have to unfold and then turn it over and fold it the other way.
You must come close.
Everyone, does it look like this? One side looks like this?
I can't see.
Well, it'll look like that.
Okay, now, all right, now this is help your neighbor. This is definitely the help your neighbor time.
Say that again?
So you have to fold it in half, either vertically or horizontally. It doesn't matter.
Right.
So this is horizontally so that the folds are on the outside. And then you fold it, that's right. Okay, yeah. And then you fold it like this, the other way. And most of the ladies